morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of Voice Radio. So today, we're taking a trip to Lavender Town. It's a new stadium card, which is coming out in Team Up over in the US, UK, Europe, etc. And this one is devious. Now, Lavender Town is, of course, where you find all them there are ghost Pokemon and all of that malarkey in the game. Of course, Let's Go Eevee, Let's Go Pikachu has just been released. I've been playing around in Lavender Town lately, as I'm sure many of you have. And this is a really nice stadium. What does it do? Well, according to the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations, and as a side note, I love the artwork on this card. I don't know why. I know it's 5-band graphics, I know it's CG, I don't care, it just looks cool. Once during each player's turn, that player may look at their opponent's hand. I love this. This gives so many options. I mean, this brings back memories for me of Gumshoes. I always thought that Gumshoes GX should see a lot more play. Now, to be fair, Gumshoes was weak to fighting, and in a Buzzwole world, maybe that was too much. But the GX attack for a single colourless energy does 10 damage plus 50 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon, which can add up quickly. And the ability just lets you look at your opponent's hand once during their turn. And this is a surprisingly powerful thing to do. There are so many situations in the Pokemon trading card game where there's basically a 50-50 chance. You've got two options. You can do one of two things, and you don't really know what the right one is. Well, with Lavender Town out, you don't need to worry. Simple things like, right, if I play a Guzma, am I going to be able to strand them in the active? Now, there's no guarantee here. If I play a Guzma, I might want to strand him in the active, and maybe I've got a Tapu Koko and I'm just trying to do 20 damage to all of my opponent's Pokemon. Or maybe I've just got absolutely nothing and I'm hoping they can't retreat. So what I do is I bring up something like a Makago. Makago is a good example because it's got a retreat cost of 3, so it's quite hard to get out the active. And essentially my opponent's only getting out the active if they've got some kind of switching card. Now, if they don't have a Guzma in hand, they've got a top deck one. And maybe they will top deck one, but that's about it. Of course, if they're playing Makago, maybe they've made sure they'll top deck one, but let's just assume they haven't. But there are other switching cards. There are cards like Switch and Escape Rope. And the thing is, you can look at your opponent's hand, and they've got no Switch or Escape Rope, but they've got a Cynthia. Which means that, okay, they don't have it now, but there's every chance that they play the Cynthia, draw it, and then can get out the active. I'm not saying this guarantees that things like Guzma will work. What I am saying, very, very clearly, is that it increases the chances that it will work. There's no guarantee, but you've at least got a better chance. I mean, we've all played those games where we Guzma something into the active, and it turns out our opponent had a Guzma all along, and it's a complete and utter waste of time. This will stop those games. Does it guarantee they won't have it? No. But you know what? That's all right. At least it's upping your chances. For another example, let's take Granbull. I played in a Granbull mirror match recently, and the Granbull mirror match is dumb. Because essentially, you just one-hit KO each other. So whoever goes first, if they don't miss a KO, they win the game, guaranteed. It's a little bit dumb. And with the Granbull mirror, there will be times you can take out their only Makago, or take out their only Oranguru, or whatever, but you don't know what they've got coming up. Well, here, you can basically make that decision. You can look at their hand and go, okay, here's what they've got. I can take out their only Oranguru because they've got no way of getting it. Whereas if you look at their hand and they've got a Nest Ball already in hand, or they've got a Rescue Stretcher already in hand, you go, okay, maybe this isn't the best play for now. This helps you with decision making. That is a huge thing about Lavender Town. It helps you to make sure you are making the optimal decision. That does not guarantee it's always going to work, but it does give you extra information and help. But it's not just about that. There are some cards that specifically can make phenomenal use of this. And look, one of them is just the most fitting one ever. It's Mimikyu and Gengar Tag Team GX. I know, right? Because I told you, Lavender Town is where you go to catch all your ghost Pokemon. You see, Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX have an attack called Poltergeist. Many Pokemon have had this in the past, they're just the one getting it soon. And it does 50 damage for each trainer card in your opponent's hand. And here, there's no, I wonder what my opponent will top deck malarkey. This is, what do they have in their hand right now? And if they've got enough item cards in hand, or trainer cards as a whole, including supporters and all of that, then you use Poltergeist. If not, maybe you use Horror House, which stops your opponent playing any cards from their hand, and then lets you both draw till you've got 7 in hand. But that's only if you've got 2 Psychic Energy. With 1 Psychic Energy, you just stop them playing anything. You essentially buy yourself a turn, which in and of itself is quite nice. It's a handy little bonus. For stuff like Poltergeist, Lavender Town is absolutely phenomenal. And let us please not forget that Mimikyu and Gengar is not the only Pokemon around at the moment that has Poltergeist. The Trevenant from Guardians Rising, that Stage 1 grass Pokemon, also has the same attack for a double colourless energy. Now, to be fair, that's never seen a huge amount of play. And look, there was a time when it was legal at the same point as Vileplume and Forest of Giant Plants, and it didn't see a huge amount of play. But even so, something like this really, really helps. Want another example? How about Team Skull Grunt? Team Skull Grunt is brilliant. Well, that's not strictly true. Team Skull Grunt is brilliant when you know your opponent has energy in hand. It's a supporter card that lets you look at your opponent's hand and then discard 2 energy cards you find there. If they've got energy cards in their hand, and bearing in mind, if you find stuff like double colourless energy, there's no special charge to recover it. And if you find stuff like beast energy, in their faces, because that goes straight to the lost zone. If you find those kind of cards, it's wonderful. If you don't, you've used your supporter card for the turn and you've done literally nothing. Well, Lavender Town here works really nicely because you've got Cynthia and Team Skull Grunt in your hand. If you see they've got the energy, play Team Skull Grunt. If not, then don't. I talked just earlier today about a redonkulous deck that just played 1 Super Boost energy, and that was the only energy it played. I'll pop a link in the description. Check it out. It's nuts. If you haven't done so already. Hopefully you have, but if not, check it out. It's nuts. The thing is, if you were to play an Enhanced Hammer, well, that deck would lose. Well, that you can't, because they attach it to Greninja GX and then immediately get rid of it by shuffling Greninja and the energy back into their deck, and it's gone away. So how do you take this down? You try and drop Team Skull Grunt at the best possible opportunity, and then they have it for the game, and they basically have to scoop because at that stage they've got nothing. It's fun, right? But you've got to do it when your opponent has this in hand, and that is where Team Skull Grunt comes in. And I think when we're talking about stuff like Poltergeist and Team Skull Grunt, Lavender Town is phenomenal. I think otherwise, even though it's useful and it's fun, it is a bit awkward, because your opponent could always top deck or otherwise find the card that they want. I mean, if they've got an Oranguru and a Macargo on the field, it doesn't matter what they've got in their hand, they can get the card they need next turn. It's always, and I mean always, nice to be able to see what your opponent's got in their hand, but it won't always help you to really win the following turn. The other thing we got to point out here, this is a stadium. So if you're playing this, you're not playing Shrine of Punishment. You're not playing Brooklet Hill. And yes, you might play them as well, but you can't play them both at the same time. Now, with Mimikyu and Gengar Tag Team GX, well, why would you want Brooklet Hill? And why would you want Shrine of Punishment? So there, maybe it's okay. Is there a stadium we really want with that card? I mean, maybe. Because let's not forget we've got Altar of the Moon. An Altar of the Moon is a fun little card that reduces the retreat cost of Pokemon with Psychic and Darkness energy attached by 2. Which means that Mimikyu and Gengar Tag Team GX with the energy attached would have free retreats. There's nothing to stop you playing a mixture of the 2 stadiums, but of course, as I've said, you can only play 1 per turn. And this is where it all gets just that little bit awkward. I think it's a good card, and in a few specific circumstances, Poltergeist and Team Skull Grunt come to mind, though they're far from the only ones, and there's blatantly going to be more released between now and when this card rotates out. For those circumstances, Lavender Town is nuts good. But outside of that, I don't know. It's definitely a fun card. It's definitely a good card. But if you don't have that specific use, I worry that it's just not quite good enough. We've got a lot of really good stadium cards at the moment. This is one of them, but it is just one of them. I'm giving it between 3 and 4 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would, of course, be barbaric. It is a great, great card. A phenomenal card in a couple of decks. And a useful card in any deck, but probably overshadowed by other stadiums. But if you disagree with me, or even if you agree, or you just want to say hello or tell me your pet's name, you can do so in the comment section. Go nuts, ladies and gentlemen, but please do remember the rule. Be nice, would ya? And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and follow me on Twitter at The Wassie, where I ramble about stuff. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do so is over at patreon.com/PTCGRadio. There's bonus podcasts. And do make sure you check out youtube.com/WassiePlays for some more Wassie action. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.